On?
Yep.
Hi. That's odd when it's an online meeting. Hello. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the first of four online.
Sorry, we might want to just wait a minute. People are coming in. We have about 9 attendees coming in. You can see the attendees list. Yeah, let everyone get in.
Let me know when.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we'll be with you in just a minute, waiting for other folks to join us. Hi, if you've just joined us, we're just waiting a few seconds for some other folks to join. So stay tuned, we'll be right with you. About ready?
About 26 people in here. So we could probably get started.
Okay. Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining us for the first of 4 online community engagement meetings for Salt Lake County's West General Plan, which is a high-level, long-range document to help guide the future of the western third of the county, with an emphasis on unincorporated areas. I'm Brian Wilkinson of Wilkinson, Ferrari and Company Communications. I'm part of the project team, and I'll be your MC this evening. We have a lot to cover, so let's take a look at the agenda. Hillary, could you put that up, or is it up?
I can put it up.
Okay. Let's see. In just a second, I'll give you a brief introductions, let you know who of our panel of experts who are here tonight to answer questions. Then we'll watch a short video. It's about 10 minutes in length and describes the need for the general plan, the overview of the planning process, and the progress that has been made to date. That will be followed by a presentation by Salt Lake County planners with more details about the needs and opportunities of the 4 geographic areas that the planning process focuses on. All 4 of those areas will be discussed tonight, although the main focus for this meeting is on the Great Salt Lake Shoreline, which includes unincorporated county areas, as well as parts of Salt Lake City, Magna Township, and the city of North Salt Lake. Following the presentation, which should last about 20 minutes or so, we'll have ample time for a question and answer session with our group of experts, and we will adjourn promptly at 7. One more thing, since this is an online meeting, we'll be using the functions in Zoom for asking questions. You have 2 ways to do so. The first is the Q&A feature, which is on the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Simply click on it and type in your question, and that will come to us, and we will respond to it in the order in which we get them. You can also click the raise hand function, which indicates that you would like to ask a question, but you'll need to remember it until we start the Q&A session. Or you can also write it in the Q&A box. So I made that more confusing than I needed to, I think. If you have any questions, there's also a chat function And Hillary Robertson from our team will be able to help you with any technical issues. And yes, we'll go over all of that again before we start the Q&A so that everyone who wants to ask a question is able to. Okay, let's see. Let's show the video. Let's go on to the video.
I'm Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson, and I'm standing here on the county's beautiful west side with the vast Great Salt Lake and its wetlands to the north and the towering Okra Mountains behind me. Utah and Salt Lake County have grown quickly in recent years and will continue to for the foreseeable future. Growth can bring great opportunities to our residents and communities, but it can also bring challenges that require us to work collaboratively and proactively to plan for tomorrow and beyond. Salt Lake County is planning for the future of the large unincorporated areas along the West Bench and the Great Salt Lake Shoreline, as well as planning for other opportunities and challenges that we will face as the county continues to grow. We thank you for investing your time in helping to shape the future of Salt Lake County by sharing your feedback, and we look forward to working with you to make our community a beautiful, safe, sustainable, and thriving place to live and work.
Salt Lake County, Utah's most populous area, has more than 1.2 million residents today and is expected to grow to 1.8 million people or more by the year 2065. That's a third more residents, 600,000 more over the next 40-plus years. While this may sound like a long time, it will be here before we know it, especially considering the amount of time it takes to adequately plan and prepare for sustainable growth. So, where will these new residents live? Some new residents will live within existing cities located in the eastern two-thirds of Salt Lake County, while many more will likely reside in the western third. This area contains most of the remaining vacant, developable land, and is where approximately 60% of the county's growth has occurred since 2000. This map shows land that can potentially be developed within existing cities and townships, as well as land in unincorporated Salt Lake County that could be developed in the long term. Planning for and managing growth is critically important, yet it's not an easy thing to do. Planning for growth is a shared responsibility that involves government agencies at the federal, state, county, and municipal levels. All municipalities and counties are required to have long-range plans for the future, called general plans. Counties are responsible for land use planning in unincorporated areas. In Salt Lake County, this includes Wasatch Canyons and large parcels of unincorporated land in the western portion of the county. Funds for many growth-related issues, such as road construction and transit, are distributed through multi-county agencies, like the Wasatch Front Regional Council, or transportation agencies like UDOT and UTA. Salt Lake County started the West General Plan process in 2018 and is expected to conclude in 2021. Planning for and managing growth is critically important and requires a series of steps, beginning with an inventory and assessment of existing conditions, such as the existence of roads, utilities, and other infrastructure and their condition, the types of nearby land uses, priorities laid out in adjacent cities' general plans, the availability of water, the county's ability to provide services to new development, and plans of surrounding private landowners. Once the detailed research is complete, the next step is to share that information with residents and local officials, seek their comments, and listen to suggestions through open houses, presentations, workshops, and online surveys. For example, since the West General Plan process began, the county has held over 25 engagement meetings and conducted 2 online surveys. The first survey, seeking feedback on growth issues with the plan, received a total of 2,534 responses and 1,268 comments. The second survey on the vision statements had 2,066 responses and 3,876 comments. To plan for growth and land conservation, the county needs to evaluate the challenges and opportunities presented by both and find the balance between them. Growth can bring new job prospects, increased sales tax revenue, greater variety in housing, and more and improved community amenities. However, growth can also bring significant challenges, making it difficult to provide housing for new residents, build roads and transit systems, extend utilities, and provide desired parks and recreation opportunities. And, importantly, growth can also raise concerns from current residents about how the county can accommodate new neighbors and development without harming the existing quality of life. Conserving critical lands, habitat, and natural recreation resources also requires careful thought. It takes specific planning, financial resources, and long-term commitments by the public and governments. To illustrate how Western Salt Lake County can grow and provide significant opportunity for those who live, work, learn, and play there, a series of vision statements were drafted based on community input. The public was then asked to review these statements and provide comments via an online survey. The survey results convey what residents feel the future for Western Salt Lake County can be. 68%, more than 2/3 of survey respondents, said they agree with the plan's draft vision statement. Salt Lake County's vision is that the West areas provide enduring communities, employment centers, and open spaces. Communities are integrated with a multimodal transportation system and driven by a commitment to respect the landscape, conserve natural systems, and develop public resources. These future communities consist of a variety of districts, centers, and neighborhoods, each creating safe and beautiful places for our children, current and future generations, to live and work. Residents who took the survey also had positive reactions to more specific vision statements about land use, transportation, recreation, environment and conservation, economy, housing, and utilities and public safety. As Salt Lake County looked at its role in planning for the future of unincorporated areas, 3 geographic zones stood out for the West General Plan: the Great Salt Lake Shoreline, North and Central Okra Mountains, and the Southwest Okers and Camp Williams. Each of these areas presents unique opportunities and challenges. The Great Salt Lake Shoreline includes a mixture of large preserved wildlife habitat, bird refuges, private waterfowl management areas, and some of the last working farms in the county. It plays a key role in protecting the Great Salt Lake through water rights, natural land conservation, and the preservation of historic uses. Some significant challenges in the area include the shrinking of the Great Salt Lake and changing adjacent uses, including the construction of the new Utah State Correctional Facility, and ensuring that current and future land uses remain compatible with the preservation of habitat for migratory birds and other wildlife. In the northern and central parts of the Okra Mountains, where much of the land is privately owned by Rio Tinto Kennecott, the focus is on mining reclamation, conserving land for future parks, recreation and natural green spaces, and potential future residential communities and job centers. The southwestern corner of the county, including Camp Williams, offers significant potential for multiple high-quality recreation opportunities in Butterfield, Yellow Fork, and Rose Canyons. The area also offers the potential for partnering with the state on land conservation, fire protection, and public safety in the Camp Williams area. So, what happens next with the West General Plan? Over the next several months, the county will seek additional public feedback about the 3 geographic areas of focus, including soliciting suggestions about how to achieve community goals in each area. After a series of engagement activities, a draft West General Plan will be presented to the County Planning Commission and County Council for review. Both governing bodies will hold public hearings which will provide additional opportunities for the community to give their input. Once approved, county officials will start working with communities, landowners, municipalities, and other stakeholders to implement the plan.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about the importance of the West General Plan and how we are investing in the future of Western Salt Lake County. This plan shows us what the Great Salt Lake Shoreline, the Okra Mountains, and the Southern Traverse Ridge area could look like in 40 years. Some of the items in the general plan are applicable today. Others will be better preparing us for the coming decades. The input we receive from county residents is vital to shaping our future, acknowledging population growth while maintaining the high quality of life we enjoy today. I encourage you to learn more about this process and stay up to date on the latest involvement opportunities by visiting the project website. On behalf of all of us in Salt Lake County, thank you again.
Got to be unmuted these days. Great. I hope you found the video provided a good overview of why and how the general plan is being done. Let's dig a bit deeper now and explore the needs and opportunities of those several planning areas that were talked about in the video, with a particular focus on the Great Salt Lake Shoreline. So I'd like to introduce Jake Young, Salt Lake County Planner and Project Manager for the West General Plan. He is going to walk through the presentation, and also Helen Peters, Salt Lake County's Transportation Planner, will jump in, as well as perhaps Ryan Perry, who is Director of Regional Plan, or I'm sorry, what is your title? Planning and Transportation Director. Excuse me, Ryan. One other thing, just a reminder about how to ask questions. You can type a question in the Q&A function on the Zoom control panel, or raise your hand. The Q&A, typing it in will show up to us on our side immediately. Raising your hand, you'll need to remember what you want to ask, okay, when the Q&A starts. So with that, let's go on to Jake.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm so glad to see that we have a number of folks here, and I looked at the attendee list, and I know many of you, and those that I don't know you, it's nice to meet you, or at least I'm glad that you get to participate in this. I wish that we were in person, but hopefully in the future we can have more public meetings in person and together. But thank you again for your time. We know you have very valuable, precious evening time, and we thank you for taking time for this plan, this project, and we look forward to your input. What are general plans? Well, general plans are a long range or comprehensive plan for counties. Cities also have them. As Mayor Wilson said, this plan is looking out, 30, 40, 50 years, even though typically general plans look out 15 to 20 years. General plans are required by Utah State Code. You may ask, well, what is the process going from a general plan to implementation or changes on the ground? And you'll see this diagram before you. There's a process of general plans providing the big picture, long-term perspective, and that moves forward into transportation plans, area plans, capital improvement plans, and then the detail of the zoning ordinances and the site plans and construction plans when someone goes to build or change a property. And this diagram provides how it's more general at general plans and more detail at the implementation scale. General plans are required to include land use, transportation, and housing. This plan also includes environment and conservation, recreation, economy, utilities, and public safety. As mentioned in the video, we have the three areas of the plan: the shoreline in the north and central Okras, and then the southwest Okras and Traverse Mountains, where Camp Williams is located. As mentioned in the video, this plan began with existing conditions research called Okra View. You can find that at the website okraview.org, where we looked at how Western Salt Lake County was growing, not only in unincorporated, but also within the cities, from Magna all the way down to Bluffdale, from Bangor to the tops of the Okra Mountains, with a 173-page report. In 2019, we conducted a public survey looking at the main issues of Western Salt Lake County and received really good public input from it. As we've been working on this, we've been talking with cities, stakeholders. We've been out in the field with the landowners. We really have have been spending a lot of time in the field to understand the issues, not only from the office, but again, being outside and on the ground. Monthly, we have planning commission meetings. You're invited to attend those. We talk about the issues, provide updates. We have steering committees that provide feedback and input. Continually, we're meeting with stakeholders and elected officials, and then also doing our public meetings and surveys. All good plans have visions to them. This plan has a general vision, as mentioned in the video, but also 7 vision statements for each of the 7 categories, from land use, housing, transportation, environment, conservation, recreation, economy, utilities, and public safety. If you have not reviewed our vision, I encourage you to do so at the website. Last year, we took this vision to the public to receive feedback, and we received over 2,000 responses and 3,876 comments. Really good feedback. And thank you to those attending tonight who took time to take the survey and provide comments. We read every single comment and we really looked at the responses in detail. Here's the timeline as mentioned in the video, began in 2018. We're expecting a draft this summer to be released and looking at public hearings in the fall. This is the first of our 4 online community meetings. We'll have 2 more this week and 1 next week. Okay, I know you came tonight to talk about the shoreline, but we're going to give you a brief overview of the Okras and also from the Southwest and Traverse Mountains areas. In the Okras, much of the land is owned by Rio Tinto. You'll see that in the dark sand, tan color, and then the lighter tan is also Kennecott Rio Tinto as well. Much of the land in the Okras is privately owned, and the areas in green and pink are also privately owned by different groups. And I will bring to your attention, the inland port is next to this plan area, but the inland port is not part of this plan. What are the issues and concerns for the Okra Mountains? Well, the post-mining impacts, what will happen after the mine closes or the areas closed as they are on occasion, the east-west traffic that we're experiencing today, but also in the future, the need for transportation systems, jobs, water, infrastructure, habitat, land development with an active mining area next door, wildfire risks, housing affordability, and air quality that we're all concerned about. What are the opportunities for the Okra Mountain? Well, we do have time to plan and improve transit and transportation solutions where things change dramatically in the Okras. Relating to mining, there's opportunities for reclamation, conservation of natural lands, development of new recreational trails and parks, clean energy, master plan communities, the potential for the Midas area to be developed over the near to midterm timeframe, coordination among master plan communities for the cities on the west side, and also the Bonneville shoreline on the west side as well. What are the preliminary recommendations for this area? Establish a regional land conservation plan and process. The county to collaborate with other jurisdictions in negotiating with Rio Tinto for land conservation and access to Okra Mountains in the future as mining changes. Continue the mining reclamation process, which has happened and will continue to happen in the future with appropriate government agencies being involved. The future land uses for this area include conservation, recreation, master plan communities, industrial, and commercial. As part of this, we also recommend updating the master plan community process, requiring detailed planning of utilities, transportation, housing, land conservation, development agreements, jobs, zoning, standards, centers, and complete communities. All of this before a master plan community can move forward. And then again, to work with Rio Tinto on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Here's what this looks like on a map in terms of a land use, future land use map. You'll see the historic claimed mining areas in brown, industrial areas in gray. In green, you see conservation areas, in yellow, recreation areas, and in pink, master plan community areas. Now, I want you to pay special attention to the red diagonal line you see going across. And if you look at our legend there, it says limited development until post-mine closure. what we're saying is that these areas, we're not seeing significant changes from today until the mine closes or goes through dramatic changes. Now, as part of planning, we do have regional transportation plans that are prepared for by Wasatch Front Regional Council, and we thank them for joining us tonight. Included in these regional transportation plans are active transportation, roads, and transit. We're not going to spend too much time on this tonight because our focus is on the shoreline area, but I wanted you to be aware of these plans, and we'll be looking at it in our other meetings. Okay, our one other area before we dive into the shoreline is the southwest Okras. This area has a mixture of land ownership. In green, you'll see private properties in the high country area. In rose color, you'll see BLM, Salt Lake County with the Yellow Fork and Rose Canyon in the orange area. The yellow line is Butterfield Canyon, and then blue is Camp Williams in the south. Some of the issues for the southwest Okras are the same as the central Okras, so I won't read those issues. But some of the other issues are increasingly additional demands on Butterfield Canyon. And Butterfield Canyon has challenges with road width, debris, graffiti, lack of cellular service, lack of amenities, need for additional maintenance for trails and roads, and multiple landowners working together. Camp Williams deals with issues related to incompatible adjacent land uses, trespassing, wildfire risks, and poaching. What are the opportunities for this area? Well, Butterfield Canyon could become a major outdoor recreation area, kind of like Mill Creek or Corner Canyon. Camp Williams is working on acquiring a land buffer around the entire military base, and that buffer could be used for habitat preservation, mitigation of wildfire risks, and also outdoor recreation. These are some of the recommendations for the southwest area. Recreation, conservation, rural, residential, and military. It's also recommended that Salt Lake County lead the effort for planning Butterfield Canyon and working with Camp Williams on the preservation of the land buffer areas for outdoor recreation. Other recommendations include acknowledging and continued support to the operation of Camp Williams for the training it provides. As mentioned, the buffer lands and also high country estates to continue as rural residential. Here's a future land use map for this area. The rural residential in purple there, high country estates, conservation areas in green, recreation in yellow, and this is a combined recreation effort with BLM, Salt Lake County properties, and potentially Rio Tinto, and maybe even Camp Williams as well. Okay, now let's talk about the shoreline area. You'll see this nice, beautiful photo that's been provided by the Audubon group. When looking at the shoreline area, there's three major groups along with the state-owned land. The areas in green are agricultural uses. There are farms that are currently grazing and farming today. You'll notice the green areas on the right side, that's agriculture. The areas in yellow are waterfowl areas for habitat and the duck clubs, and those are privately owned as well. The blue area is the Audubon area for bird habitat. And then in green is also bird habitat as well with the ISSR property, which is the Kennecott Inland Sea Shorebird Reserve. So this is the outline of the kind of the major land ownership groups and current land uses of the shoreline area. In December of last year, 2020, the state of Utah released a report regarding the Great Salt Lake, and I would like to share with you a paragraph from that report. And I'd also encourage you to look up the report. It's under GSL Resolution HCR 10, coming from our state legislators who requested this report be done. So one paragraph from this report says, water levels in Great Salt Lake, the largest saline lake in the Western Hemisphere, are in decline, threatening billions of dollars in economic activity, a globally important ecosystem, local public health, and other critical values that the lake supports, including the lake's essential contribution to Utah's water cycle through the lake effect precipitation. It's really important to understand the role of the Great Salt Lake, not only in Salt Lake County or Davis, Weber, or Box Elder County, but in all of Utah and all of North America, and even in our globe. The Great Salt Lake area is really a major flyway for birds. And you'll see here on the map, it's 2 flyways, and these birds are coming in from the north and also coming in from the south, depending on the season and their migratory pattern. When looking at this area, one of the groups to understand, or one of the landowners, the private landowners, is commonly called the duck clubs or waterfowl areas. These landowners have established water rights that date back more than 100 years. They provide and build habitat for waterfowl. There is a history of conservation, especially going back in recent decades. And some of the historic uses include hunting and grazing, and these are all private properties for the duck clubs. With the bird refuges, we have these are conservation areas. They're private properties, and they provide shorebird habitat and significant benefits to the Great Salt Lake. And the current uses are habitat, ecosystems, and secondary uses with grazing on occasion. The agriculture uses also date back more than 100 years, and they're private properties and provide habitat in some cases, conservation of land, and the continued uses are grazing, farming, and hunting in those areas. And these are some of the, as mentioned in the video, these are some of the last working farms in Salt Lake County and of considerable size. This area has significant wetlands. They're herbaceous, there's playa, there's a number of type of wetlands in this area. What are some of the issues to look at and concerns to understand for this area? Well, these are preserved areas with private properties and will continue that way. Sometimes the public would like to have access to see the birds, and that can happen on occasion, but only through the Audubon Society. They're not publicly accessible because they are private properties and maintained as bird habitat. And Ella and Jack today will join us from the waterfowl groups and also from the Audubon to talk about this and answer your questions as well. In Utah, we're noticing the effects from a hotter and drier climate. As mentioned in the video, the Great Salt Lake is shrinking over time. There's historic records to show that. There are threats from potential road expansions, utility corridor expansions, potential use of agricultural lands converting to development, and then also conflicts between bird habitats and the adjacent airport on occasion. There are issues with illegal dumping, invasive species, stormwater management, and lighting from adjacent operations affecting bird species. What are the opportunities for the shoreline area? Additional opportunity to further preserve land conservation and habitat, creation of buffers between uses and habitats, continue agricultural uses and farm preservation, potential public bird habitat and outreach educational center, and potential partnerships to achieve these common goals. Some of the recommendations for this area include promoting the awareness of the shoreline area and the ecological contribution to the Great Salt Lake watershed and ecosystem, future land uses and zoning changes focused on conservation, more efforts on water conservation. And I do want to pause for a second and just talk about that water conservation is not only important for this area, but for the entire plan. Future development also needs to be very water wise and water conservation oriented, and that will be a big part of the plan. Ensure that future transportation and utilities are compatible with conservation goals, and explore and consider additional conservation tools. And the last one is additional collaboration on removing invasive weeds. In terms of the future land use for this area, it's fairly simple. The SC stands for shoreline conservation, and that's a conservation of existing uses in agriculture, habitat, and also waterfowl areas. And of course, the lake will remain as lake. I now would like to have Helen from our office talk a little bit about the roads and transportation in this area.
Thank you, Jake. Here is a screenshot of the area from Google Earth that shows the transportation infrastructure that is in place at this time. So we've got 3200 west, 2200 west, and 3200 north. And these roads are in place at this point. There are some agencies that are responsible for planning. One is Wasatch Front Regional Council. It's a metropolitan planning organization, and they're responsible for our transportation planning in this area. I have looked up their 2019-2050 regional transportation plan, which is what they put together by decade. And for roads for phase 1, there are no roads indicated or transit or bike ped facilities. So this area, the recommendation is going to be to just have the roadways function as they are, the roadway network function as it does now. I know that on 3200 West that it is a road base that is tamped down by Salt Lake City from time to time. And then 3300 North is pavement, and so is 2200 West. There's probably a default bike infrastructure, and that is just out in this area, and it's not so heavily traveled by motorists. And so you'll probably find some bikers, cyclists out in this area just enjoying the views and the wildlife. So for this study, that is what we're planning on. Our recommendation being is just maintain the existing infrastructure at this point. But I'm certainly open to hearing anything you have to say. Clearly, it's anything that is west of I-215 is just local roadways, and Salt Lake County is responsible for those in the unincorporated area.
Thank you, Helen. So that concludes our presentation, and we're looking forward to your questions and dialogue and discussion on this area. Brian, do you want to go ahead and do a review?
Yes, indeed. Thanks very much for that, Jake and Helen. A lot of information, and I'm sure that people in attendance have plenty of questions and comments. Reminder about how to ask questions. You know what? Let's, Hillary, could you put up the slide of the panelists? I want to introduce people first. Thank you. Let's see, we've already heard from Helen and Jake and Ryan Perry, who's Director of Regional Planning and Transportation for the county. Dina Blaze is also, is she with us? Didn't see her on the list, but Director of the Office of Regional Development for the county. And also, and Thomas McMurtry is a transportation consultant, a member of the team on the plan for Salt Lake County. Some special guests we have with us this evening. Nikki Navio is a transportation planner for WFRC, the Wasatch Front Regional Council, which is that metropolitan planning organization that Helen mentioned. Ella Sorensen, who is the manager of the Gilmore Sanctuary for Audubon. Jack Ray with the Utah Waterfowl Association. And did I get everybody, I think, correctly? Okay, so those are our panel of experts, and feel free to address a question to any of them, or just a question in general. Two ways to ask questions. One is the Q&A function, where you type your question. That will come to us. I'll read it and we'll respond to it. You can also push the raise your hand button. on the bottom, and you can ask your question verbally if you would like. Oh, and then muting and unmuting. I think that's become something we're all acutely aware of. It we're on Zoom meetings at all. Is the need to mute and unmute yourself when you're speaking. Okay, so, and if you have any questions, Hillary Robinson, you can reach her via the chat function or send an email, which sounds like so old world these days, doesn't it? So with that, oh, ground rules. I think people have probably seen this before. It's a public meeting. Everyone participates, no one dominates, everyone has an equal opinion to share. Please don't interrupt. That's not terribly easy with Zoom anyway. Keep an open mind, as I think we always need to do. State your questions and comments clearly, and the golden rule, respond to others how you would like to be responded to. Okay, so let's get on with the questions then. I'm seeing one here. Let's see, this is from Dita Seed, and says, why don't you have threats from the proposed inland port development listed? Even if this plan doesn't include the development proposed in that area, there are consequences of potential development which are potentially enormous. So who wants the pleasure of responding to that? Ryan or Jake or?
Yeah, I can try to attempt to start it. Thank you so much for your comment, Dita. And I think that first of all, we have an acknowledgement that the inland port is a highly charged land use right next to the conservation area that we're talking about. And so I don't think that you see that we're not proposing any discussion on that. In fact, it is absolutely mentioned and discussed. And I think our intent on this plan is to address the things that are in our jurisdiction in Salt Lake County. And so as we talk about the preservation goals and objectives within our plan, that's really what we're doing. And I think that as you look at those goals and objections and visions, that certainly comes into play when talking about any negative effects of adjoining land uses. And so, Jake, do you want to add anything to that?
I just would like to add that the inland port has been of major discussion, and we are talking about it. And this plan can provide recommendations for how the shoreline area can respond to the inland port being adjacent. Also, there could be recommendations of how to work together so that the shoreline area doesn't suffer or experience a decline because of the inland port being next to it. And I do think through collaboration and discussion that hopefully things can improve. Ella, would you like to add something on that? I know you have discussion with the inland port on occasion, and
yes, I would agree that, probably it should at least be listed as a threat because it is a major, threat. And we are very, very worried about it. Actually, Audubon is actively working with the port. We have been working for 2 years on putting conservation easements on 4,000 acres for a buffer between our area, the Duck Clubs, ISSR, and Audubon. We also are, in fact, we had a meeting today with Laura Briefer and the port to talk about lighting, and we're working with consultants. Colmena has agreed to pay for a consultant for lighting, and we're working, we have a water policy team. So we are very, very aware and very, very concerned and are actively trying to do everything we can to lessen the impacts, which will be real.
Thank you, Ella. And also I'd like to add that Ella and others have been of great value and input to this process and helping us understand the adjacent impacts that are coming to it. And this is feeding into the plan.
Okay, great. Thank you, panelists. Let's see, Hillary, I'm seeing a couple of hands raised. There's some written questions as well. Can we go to one of the, or are those the same thing?
They're not the same. So I believe Michael Skidmore is next.
Okay. Let's see, Michael Skidmore, ask your question, please. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Now we can,
Okay.
thank you.
So my question is, have you considered linking the Bonneville Shoreline Trail with paved bike trails such as on Mountain View Corridor?
Good question. Transportation, Helen, do you want to take the lead on that?
Sure. What I'll do is the alignment is tentative at this time, and so what I'll do is I'll look for so I'll look at that alignment, and then we'll look at connectivity with probably we'll look at east-west connectivity for the trail. So I'll definitely make a note of that when we look in the more midsection to make sure that the Bonneville Shoreline Trail is connected with local regional trail or local trails, excuse me.
And an additional question along with that, are you looking to implement and create paved trails within the developed areas of the county to connect with the Jordan River Parkway Trail and Mountain View Corridor trails and others?
Okay. Yeah, so we have some long linear trails, and so we need to make sure that we have the east-west connectivity, and that's what you're talking about. Because I know that we do have one like the Utah Salt Lake Canal that we're working on. To that one connects into the Mountain View Corridor Trail, and then it goes at the north end. It starts to veer west towards Magna, and then ends at Magna Copper Park. So Salt Lake County Parks and Rec has been doing an urban trail study, so I will make sure that we pull that up and take a look at that with trail connectivity.
Okay, thank you.
And Brian, I just want to add that I think that the Bonneville Shoreline Trail is a fantastic opportunity of what the future may look like for this West Bench. If we're talking about visioning, that's I think a vision that's shared amongst a lot of people, and that is of great interest to Salt Lake County to have a trail system similar to what we've been working decades for on the East Bench. It may not be opened up right away, but that is absolutely something that we would love to achieve.
Great goal for the future. Anything else from the panel?
I was just going to add one thing, Brian, is that we see the West Bonneville Shoreline Trail as kind of a backbone trail, and there may be even other backbone trails as well. And then from there comes a lot of network of trails. So connecting in the Jordan River, I think that's absolutely possible. It's going to require collaboration with the cities in between, because we have the unincorporated on the Okras on the west side, and then we have a number of cities, and then we have Jordan River in the middle. So it will require that collaboration among everybody, but also those canal trails offer a really good opportunity for that.
Great, wonderful. Okay, let's go to our next question on the Q&A. This is from Jeff Marble, and he asks, how many on this committee and panel live in the Southwest area under consideration? And just clarifications, the whole west third of the county, from north to south. But who would like to, Jake?
I can give it a shot.
Or Ryan, talk about
Yeah.
the involvement.
So I do live in the southwest region of the county, and fairly close to the unincorporated area. I'm not sure if anyone else on this panel is. This is really focused for the shoreline area.
Yeah, it is the shoreline.
Yeah.
The shoreline.
So if anyone else is, you can speak up. I will say that we have had various stakeholder committees that we've been meeting with lots of individuals that have, property rights and interest in these. We are doing these same type of question and answer and presentations to all of the municipalities that are surrounding this area. And so our attempt is to get as much southwest direction as we can, and not just southwest direction, but community direction, neighbors from the shoreline area that's focused today. We want to focus on the shoreline area and get those community inputs. But as we move further to that interest, we want to hear from those communities, and that's why we divided the community meetings up into those 4 different sections.
Okay. Great. Let's hear from Jeff Richards, has his hand up. If you could unmute your microphone and ask your question or make a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, well, thank you and good evening. Jeff Richards, I'm a member of the North Point Duck Club, which is directly adjacent to the Rudy Duck Club. Our access to our club and kind of location is west of 3200 West. First of all, I just want to thank Salt Lake County for this effort. I think it's very meaningful and worthwhile, and I appreciate the ability to provide comments this evening. The comment I have this evening is because our lands are so close to 3200 and the impact any development just directly to the east of 3200 West and in between 3200 West and 2200 West will have a direct impact on our clubs in a number of different ways. Is there any talk of improving 3200 West or creating some kind of a buffer between the development there and the duck clubs there? And then the second part of that land between 3200 West and 2200 West has been incorporated by Salt Lake County. What is Salt Lake County doing to coordinate this effort with Salt Lake City's effort to develop that area? Thank you.
Okay, great. Question with a couple of questions in there. Jake, do you want to start and then bring in Mr. Ray and Helen Peters and others, I guess?
Well, I think we should have Helen talk about the roads first.
It's a road focus. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I
Helen.
can address if he's asking about annexation potential.
Okay, Helen.
Okay, 3200 West. I know that Salt Lake County Public Works has no plan for any improvement on that road. As I said earlier, that's the one that just has the road base. There's no pavement on that. And the other two, the 2200 West has pavement, but I can tell from a review that it is cracking and it probably would need reconstruction or some sort of maintenance within the next 5 years. So if there were development between 32 and 2200 West, then it would make some sense that we'd have to look at the roadways. But I noticed that there might be some issues with playas. If the lake were higher, we might have water issues. And I noticed that there are there's some water. So that it would, and then there's the canal. We'd have to work and decide if that area was even developable. And that would be a Salt Lake County decision if they wanted to, if we had any developments that came in that could be supported by the playa and the wetlands, because that's when you get to 3200 West, you're really starting to move into the wetlands. Okay. So I guess we could make a recommendation that this would be a conservation area and that no development should be considered, which is what we've been talking about this evening. So Jake, do you want to talk about that?
Well, Helen, can I add one other thing about transportation? So,
sure.
Jeff, I think Helen did a good job of telling you that, there's no plans to do any type of improvements or development on 3200 West. You mentioned 2200 West and Salt Lake City, and what we're doing to kind of work with them. Salt Lake City is about to undergo their own study of the 2200 West corridor and look at adjoining land uses. So that's about to kick off and will likely take up a lot of 2021 and, like throughout this year. And so that study, I think, is going to look specifically a lot at the land on 2200 West and what the city and those neighborhoods, want to see kind of going to the future. So there's another opportunity to get involved if you're concerned about, 2200 West and Salt Lake City.
Can you talk about the project limits on that, Thomas?
Yeah, so it's adjacent to the airport. It starts about like 1700 north, or maybe it's a little bit, if I'm looking at the map, it starts with kind of like, some of those industrial uses on 2200 West by the airport, but it goes up to.
So that would be North Temple Street, North Temple to at least 2100 north.
Yeah, and then it goes up to 33rd North, and then it turns over towards,
some of that
Legacy. So it goes from Legacy out and then down 22 is the limits of that study. And it hasn't kicked off yet, but they are selecting a consultant to do that study.
Okay. Jack, did you want to add anything that's in your area of waterfowl?
Yeah, I know if you were to look at the aerial, you would see that the everything immediately adjacent on the west side of 3200 West is wetlands and sensitive habitats. And so from the perspective of the landowners there, who are very much interested in preserving the integrity of that habitat, we would view any improvement or development or expansion of 3200 West as definitely being unwanted and a negative thing for the environment there, and would suggest that it might be better for, at least for the environmental and ecological considerations, to place an arterial further to the east, so somewhere between 2200 and 3200, and to leave 3200 undeveloped so that it's not, so that increased activity on it is not causing any problems for the habitat on the west side of it.
Okay. Any other panelists want to jump in on that or move to the next? Okay, thank you. Okay, next question, excuse me, is from Catherine Davies. Says, good evening all, thank you for your presentations. Can you please send around a link to the slides from this evening? In particular, is there a link to the future land use map that you can post so that we can look at it while we are chatting? Oh, well, that's a great idea, let's do that. Hillary, would you mind putting up that map? And yes,
Jake has that on his
oh,
website.
Jake has it. I'm sorry.
At our project website, there's a story map, which is an online map, and I believe it's there. I do have Kate's email, and after this, I can send her a copy of the presentation, and we will post this following the presentations this week.
Both the slides and a recording of this, the whole webinar, so you can watch it all again if you'd like to. Okay, let's see here. Next question, Liz Oates. There are very few opportunities for recreational opportunities in this area, which can make it hard for residents to have a great quality of life where they live. Can the plan include more recreational opportunities, especially public trails and paths? So back to something we were talking about just a moment ago. Who would like to say anything more about recreational opportunities? Jake? Ryan?
I'll start off and then others can jump in. I will say in the shoreline area, most of the land is private, and so that does limit opportunities for public recreation. Rio Tinto is looking at the possibility of a visitor center and maybe some kind of trail they've mentioned. I can't speak to that. They would have to, but I know that's been discussed. Where we see the biggest opportunity for trails is in the Okra Mountains, definitely. Would anybody else like to add to the opportunity for public recreation in this area?
I would say, Audubon and ISSR is a actual mitigation, and it's devoted to habitat. You know, Audubon does believe in education and things like that, but our main goal is to preserve areas for birds. And you know, we are planning some limited stuff, but you know, there's no way to say it. You cannot have a lot of people in these very, very sensitive areas without disturbing the birds. And we try to do a balance, but our balance kind of goes mostly for the birds. And Jack, why don't you jump in and say a few words on this subject?
Yeah, I think, you know, speaking for the duck clubs, during much of the year, they provide, for instance, in the spring, nesting habitat. And obviously during the nesting season, you know, disturbance of the birds can be very, you know, can be a big negative. And so we have limited activity on those areas during the nesting season in order to allow the birds to, I guess, nest in peace. And, you know, shorebirds and waterfowl and, you know, a whole spectrum of species that use the area out there. And so, you know, an actively used public trail would probably be detrimental to those efforts to try to preserve the area for the birds.
And I'll also add that, you know, Audubon has 4,000 acres that we manage, and our focus are shorebirds. And shorebirds have unique migration strategies. They fly from their breeding grounds all the way up north, the Arctic Circle, northern Canada. They fly often nonstop to the Great Salt Lake because of the large numbers of macroinvertebrates. They feed, they fatten, and this is absolutely critical that they are not disturbed in their migration, because then after they leave Great Salt Lake, they will fly sometimes 5,000 miles nonstop all the way to some of them all the way to the tip of South America. So our mission is to put the needs of birds first. We are not against having people come in education, but we want that education to be focused on the unique habitat, the birds, not just somebody wanting to go out and, you know, not partake of what we are trying to do. And we are a private landowner, so.
Okay, thank you. Lynn DeFreitas asks, regarding maintaining existing infrastructure, roads west of I-15 and local roads in the vicinity of 3,200 north, 2,200 west, and 3,300 north. There have been and continue to be proposals for development, such as a former Ivory Homes development proposal and the pending North Salt Lake incorporation of unincorporated county land near north of 3,300 north. Obviously, transportation corridors will evolve to keep up with these transportation demands, which will likely affect the landscape. I'm thinking Helen might want to take this.
Okay, let me. So the question was about, you know, there are going to be development proposals that come in, and notably there have been two that have come in, one from Ivory Homes and then one that involves North Salt Lake, it sounds like. And that one, I know that the access is being considered from the north end as opposed to the south. But I know Ryan has been working on these projects as well. Ryan, do you have a comment on this? I mean, there will be a transportation impact study that is completed as part of the development review, and that's when we'll look at circulation and if, you know, the roadways are adequate to manage the extra traffic that is created, or whether it's going to have to be some other solution in this fragile area.
Ryan or anyone else that address it? Okay. All right. Let's see here. Excuse me. David Gellner asks, Salt Lake City's Northwest Quadrant Plan of 2016 also included a section on greenways and open spaces. Will future, where to go here? Will future trail and open space considerations look at how they can work with or coordinate with some of those identified city visions? Jake or Ryan?
I can answer that. We have reviewed the Northwest Quad Plan. I think we even linked to it on our website. I've read it, really looked at it. Provides a really good vision, a lot of good ideas for that area. Specifically talking about the greenways and connecting, I think the plan kind of talks about like canoe trails or something like that, so to speak. With these lands in the shoreline area all being private and dedicated to agriculture and habitat and waterfowl, I don't necessarily see those being public waterways because, again, they are dedicated to habitat preservation and conservation. That's what I see at this point. Anybody else have anything to add?
Well, you know, a lot of the open areas in the Salt Lake Northwest Quadrant Plan are private, and it's people who are ranchers who have ranched there for a long time. So in that whole area that's slated as open space, a lot of that, you know, you've got people that are doing, you know, grazing, ranching. The Salt Lake Airport is in that area, and again, it's except for the airport, they're and theirs is a mitigation site. So,
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Sorry, I was having a hard time muting on that last question. I didn't want to ignore the question and the component that Helen was asking to. So I apologize. I was trying to jump in and I didn't. So we do know that there is lots of discussion about potential there. In terms of our plan, you know, we're seeing the same existing uses as are currently there. You know, Salt Lake County has a challenge in providing services to that area. And so as far as development, we know that the owner of that land is looking for different places, but Salt Lake County in itself does not plan on a different land use than is currently present.
Okay, thank you. Lynn DeFreitas again. Likely in the county's archive of planning efforts, you've reviewed the Great Salt Lake Salt Lake County Shorelines Plan, excuse me, from summer of 2002 through the fall of 2004. That was facilitated by Summer Swanner of the Swanner Design Group. That process involved extensive public outreach, and it might be worth taking a look, even though the adjacent land use dynamics have changed, especially with the birth of the inland port. So just a comment, not a question. And I see Jake shaking his head like you know what that is and you've looked at it. So
thank you. There's a lot of really good plans for the Great Salt Lake, and we are referencing them.
Okay, great. Okay, Deborah Gatrell asks, will the plan address Kennecott land and how that will be apportioned between cities like has happened with Daybreak if and when the company divests itself of the land?
sure.
So Brian, I think I can probably take that one.
Okay.
So the answer is that you know, throughout the entire area of our West General Plan, there are lots of different municipalities that have interest in annexation, and oftentimes there's multiple overlapping annexation declarations for these areas. And so it is very difficult for us to say this is where an area should go when there's lots of competition to receive those areas. And so as you see the process that Jake kind of outlined at the beginning of what a general plan is, and as you get more detail, I think it's structured to where we can have that conversation with the municipalities that are close by and the different annexation rules that apply of how that works and happens. So no, we will not be saying this area goes to these cities, and we will allow that process to occur as time develops, keeping in mind that most of our unincorporated area is not in a short-term development stage. It's more long-term looking. And then for your next question, I'll just try to answer that as well, which is that the Magna is in charge of their streets. They're their own municipality. And so this plan would not cover a municipality. It's only for the unincorporated area.
You answering the question about parking that was also, is that Ms. Cottrell asked several questions all in a row there. So
yeah, sorry. The one I thought I had it right there. I guess it was the third question that I tried to just answer with that narrow streets and parking in Magna, which is that Magna is its own their own municipality and are in charge of those parking ordinances and rules. In terms of the public access to the sea, just
let
west
me,
of Magna.
Deborah also asks, how about public access to the sea just west of Magna?
Yeah, so Jake, I'm not sure if you know exactly on the map what the ownership is right now, but I know that we're absolutely looking at access to the mountains and how we recreate and use those.
Yes, it's just a matter of really the access may not come until there's significant mining changes. Rio Tinto is very aware of that. They know that's a major goal of the plan. So we are hoping and working towards that. I see we got a hand raised as well.
Yes.
And then I can answer this question on HCR 10.
Okay, let's go to the Hillary, who I'm not being able to see whose hand is raised. Could you?
I don't see a hand raised. They might have put it down.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's go on to what Jake was referencing from Lynn DeFreitas as well. Hey, Lynn, by the way. Let's see, she's very glad to hear that water conservation is an important factor for the entire planning area we're talking about. And glad Salt Lake County is aware of HCR 10 and the recommendations to ensure adequate water flows to the Great Salt Lake and its wetlands. Let's see, among those 16 strategic opportunities and final recommendations include fully understanding how land use changes affect water for the Great Salt Lake. And she adds, amen. So Jake or Ella or anybody would like to jump in on this water conservation.
We definitely support water conservation, and we really appreciate your emphasis that you're putting on water conservation.
Thank you. And I have reviewed the 16 recommendations in HCR 10, and I see a number of those being very applicable in the general plan. And so we'll be talking more about it with our planning commission, our steering committee, and others. But I see it being very likely that some of those same recommendations from HCR 10 would also end up in the county's plan.
Okay, great. Anyone else on that one? Okay, let's see. I have one more question left. So if you want to ask a question, either raise your hand or type it in the Q&A. This question also from Deborah Guttrell. Any discussion about monarch butterflies? They seem to have all disappeared, and that seems to be a warning sign for migrating birds. Is that a question for Jake or Ella or
maybe
Ella?
Ella.
Expert?
I don't know a lot about butterflies.
Well, yeah, I have to say monarch, she's right on that monarch butterflies have disappeared. We have quite a bit of milkweed out on our site. I'm always looking for the caterpillars, but they never show up. And yes, you know, it's a harbinger if we don't take care of things like monarch butterflies. Some of the same issues that have faced them also face birds. Our birds are declining. So it's just a general thought that, you know, that we all should focus on taking care of our natural environment.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of a dumb answer, but I love monarch butterflies, and it's really sad to.
Who doesn't like butterflies? My gosh.
Well, something. Well, exactly.
Okay, that is the last question I'm seeing. Are there any hands raised that I'm not noticing?
I have one hand raised, from Catherine Davies.
Okay. Unmute yourself and ask your question, if you would.
Good evening, all. Thanks very much for an informative panel. I'm a long-range planner for Magna and for several other municipalities in the MSD, the Greater Salt Lake Municipal Services District. I appreciate Ryan's mention of Magna's kind of authority over their own land use and roads and things. And I'm just wondering if you guys could talk a little bit more in depth about what your kind of outreach plan is to those municipalities that are in the area. I just want to make sure that I can help you navigate that as best I can and make sure that we get everybody showing up at the right time. So if I can be of assistance to make sure that we're doing that, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Great, great comment. Who wants to take that, Ryan or Jake first?
I think we should give Jordan an opportunity to talk about.
Oh, there you are.
He was here for.
She was behind my Q&A panel that I've been moving around the screen here, so I apologize, Jordan. Yes.
Yeah, Catherine, I'd be happy to speak on that. So leading up to these series of meetings, I do know that Jake and others have met with different municipalities in the stages of the plan thus far. Specifically to these meetings, every municipal public information officer, basically the communications for each municipality, were given the links and materials to help promote this within their own areas, if that's something that they chose to do. So we did provide that to them. We also do have quite a large database of residents invested in this plan, about 2,000 plus, and we have been sending correspondence that way as well, in addition to social media outreach and reaching out to the media to spread the word. We've been trying to kind of get it in every kind of corner that we can, and we're definitely welcome to more suggestions. And if you have any, please feel free to reach out to me. I can shoot you over an email if you'd like.
And Jordan, if I can add, we have set up a meeting similar to this just for those municipal elected and appointed and staff members for the governmental entities. And so they all have invitations to that, to where we can go over things with them. And if you haven't received an invitation to that, Catherine will certainly send it to you.
And that remind me of the date, Jake. That will be coming up in April, I think. So after this.
April 7th from 12:30 to 2 p.m. And that did go out to the MSD, and also I know Magna Mayor received it, as well as Greg Schultz.
Great. And so I'm sure you guys are aware that Magna has a new general plan that is about to be adopted probably the end of March. So if you'd like me to send any information about that as well, there are a bunch of areas and an annexation plan and things that if you haven't got already, I would love for you guys to be able to have a chance to look at. Obviously not adopted yet, but will be soon.
That would be great, Kate. Please do send over the annexation stuff. I did download the Magna plan last week and went through it. Also, I've been through Copperton's plan and Kern's plan as well. So if there's anything that's more up to date than is posted on the MSD website, please send that over.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. We have a follow-up on butterflies from Deborah Guttrell. What is the plan to mitigate insects around all new West Side development? I'm concerned that spraying for bugs will damage food sources for other important migrating species. So certainly a good concern. Who wants to take the lead on that one? Nobody, apparently. Okay.
I would just say we're not to that level of detail.
Right.
But if she could provide specific information, and we're here to listen, and if you could send us email with recommendations on that, we would love it. We're certainly not to that level of detail on the insects, but if Deborah could send over recommendations, or we do have a weed specialist at the county, Sage. I can reach out to her as well, but I think it'd be great if Deborah could send over suggestions and where we could access that.
And we do have environmental and sustainability goals that I think that probably fits into, and you know, that can give a really good baseline for this conversation.
Yeah, if I could just chime in on that. You know, I know most of the landowners, the land managers out in this area are very concerned that you know, bug control efforts could damage food sources for migrating birds, and so that's we like the bugs out there. We like the macroinvertebrates, and their larvae are, you know, critical food sources for many of the bird species out there. So we don't want to see those food sources impaired as a result of control efforts.
Okay, great. Let's see. One more hand, I think. Is that right? Hillary, are we done? Or
Yes, I believe Catherine has another.
Catherine, another question. Okay. Unmute yourself and make your comment or ask your question.
Yeah, I've lowered my hand. I'm all good.
Oh, okay, great. All right, we've got 10 minutes. Do we have another question? Oh, I see a hand going up again. Now down. Okay, up, down, up, down. Okay. All right. Well, not seeing any. I think it'd be a good time to finish up, I guess, and actually get done a few minutes early. Just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us this evening. We've covered a great deal of information, I think, in the video, the presentation, some really good questions, and some really good answers from our panelists. Let's see, I hope you all got the answers to questions that you need and information that you need. If not, this is not the end of the process. There are many ways still to pass along comments, ask questions, download the documents and pour through them, should you be interested and get into the details. Let's see, Hillary, do we have the slide of the other meetings that will be coming up this week? I just wanted to go over those just one more time. There are 3 other meetings that we'll be having, and there is Hillary's son.
Sorry, I don't know why. It's freaking out. Hold on.
Let's see. We have, I'll just say what they are here. 3 other meetings. Tomorrow or Wednesday night, same time, 5:30, the Central Okers, which we divided that big Central North Okers into 2 meetings, just because of the amount of issues. Central Okers, West Jordan, Copperton, South Jordan, parts of Harriman, it's Wednesday. Thursday, the northern parts of the Okers, Magna, West Valley, Kearns, and then next Monday, the extreme southwest part of the county, the Southwest Okers and Traverse Mountains, which includes parts of all of those communities: Harriman, Riverton, Bluffdale, High Country Estates, and Camp Williams. Let's see here. The video and presentation both talked about the next steps, so I don't think we need to go over that too much, other than to say that once this process of public input is concluded, a draft plan will be written and is being written now, will be provided to the Planning Commission for their review and consideration. They will hold, I think, at least one public hearing. Jake, correct me if I'm wrong. After that process, it will go to the county council, which will also dig into it, review, and have a public hearing on it. So lots of other opportunities through the rest of the year for chiming in on the plan.
Brian, we do actually have one last minute question from
Oh,
Deborah.
sure.
She asked, does the general plan account for buffer zones around Camp Williams, vital training area for guard forces?
Yes, yes, good question. There was a little bit of talk about this in the presentation, but Jake, if you'd like to review that.
Absolutely, that's a key part of the plan for that area. And working with Camp Williams is key, and we've been doing that for a couple of years now in terms of discussion and connecting Parks and Rec with Camp Williams as well. So there's opportunity for the buffer to protect the homes that are adjacent so that we don't have that encroachment. So there's the wildfire protection, but also the creation of recreational lands in that area as well.
Great. Well, we still have 5 minutes, and any other last minute questions out there? Don't be shy. I think we've covered them all. We're going to end 5 minutes early. Wow, how's that? Thanks again to all of our panelists for taking time to participate this evening and answer questions and respond to comments. And thank you especially to all of the participants who took time out of your day to be with us this evening. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Do we all leave? I guess we do. Oh, yeah.